I am one to always say you have no business buying running backs in the offseason. Now, of course, once we get to free agency, once we get after the NFL draft, then at that point, when the dust has settled, go out there and take a shot on a few players. But it's been a lot tougher this offseason to actually sell running backs now that pretty much the entire Dynasty community is in on it. And I actually saw this post on the Dynasty Reddit saying the running back hate is becoming extreme. All right, hear me out here. I understand that while buying running backs on the cheap, on the off chance they skyrocket in value, isn't the best decision, but essentially too many people are hating on this. I tried it in one of my leagues for this last season, ended up winning, and I feel like at the very least, it's a very satisfying strategy to do right. Buying a running back for cheap as an investment might not be the best idea, but is it really as bad as y'all make it out to seem? And yeah, if you go over to the flockfantasy.com community rankings right now, just to get a sense of how everybody is valuing running backs in Dynasty, what's great is on flockfantasy.com. If you're checking out the community rankings, we actually have the exact rookie picks up there so we can see how y'all are viewing these guys. And Jahmyr Gibbs is the Dynasty RB1 currently, and he's after the 101 rookie pick, after the 102 rookie pick. I mean, afterwards, you have Breece Hall, Bijan Robinson, Christian McCaffrey, all worth less than the 103. And the RB5 in Dynasty is worth less than the 5th rookie pick this year. Of course, this is in super flex, one quarterback. It would be very different. You have Jonathan Taylor between pick 5, pick 6. You have Kyron Williams between pick 6, pick 7. After the 107, then you get Etienne, Devon Achane, Kenneth Walker. Beyond that, you have Pacheco, James Cook, Saquon Barkley, Rashad White, Tajay Spears, all pretty much being worth late first. But nonetheless, there are only 14 running backs right now that are priced as if they are worth a first-round rookie pick, and that does seem a little bit crazy. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to go through recent history and get a sense of, can we get away with buying running backs on the cheap in January, in February, now knowing that everybody in Dynasty hates these guys and hoping that they increase in value by the time we get to right after the NFL draft. So sadly, I do not have data points dating back to 2020 on flockfantasy.com because flockfantasy.com was not around in 2020. So we're going to go over to DLF ADP. And what I decided to do is I decided to look at where the top 20 running backs in Dynasty were being valued in January ADP, so right at the beginning of the offseason. And I wanted to compare that to where they are being valued in July ADP. So that's after free agency, that's after the NFL draft. And I wanted to see, do running backs gain value? Do they lose value during this time period? And how much variance is there year to year? So the first year we're going to start with will be 2020. And you are going to see that there were a considerable amount of players that actually shifted around from the 2 months. If we are looking at players that actually went up or down 5+ ADP spots, you are looking at Miles Sanders, Austin Eckler, Kenyon Drake, and Josh Jacobs all moving up during this time period. Now, of course, I'm not going to be including rookies, as rookies weren't being drafted in January. But the guys that moved down, Marlon Mack fell from 46 to 138. Yes, this is the year Jonathan Taylor got drafted. Kerryon Johnson fell from 42 to 116. Yes, this is the year DeAndre Swift was drafted. Leonard Fournette fell from 14 to 38. Melvin Gordon, 36 to 62. Devin Singletary, 51 to 73. Chris Carson, 47 to 66. Aaron Jones, 20 to 26. And Le'Veon Bell, 50 to 59. So inside those top 20 running backs, you did see that there were a considerable amount that lost value if you were to have bought them in early January. Now, the one thing that's going to be a little bit screwy with this data that I have to be completely honest with you with is if you are looking at raw overall ADP, in January, the rookies are not included, and in July, the rookies are included. So if a player were to fall, just say 3 or 4 spots down ADP, that may not necessarily mean that they actually lost any value. And instead, maybe that's just, oh, okay, I guess we can draft Jonathan Taylor now. So he's naturally going to have a higher ADP, and that is going to push players down just a bit. So if you are looking at guys that fall from, say, 50 to 56, it's not really that big of a fall. However, obviously, if you're looking at the Marlon Macks, the Kerryon Johnsons, these guys that are falling 60, 70 spots, yes, that is a massive fall down in value. Now, going over to 2021, you are going to see that there weren't as many players that fell, interestingly enough. You had a couple guys that actually rose. Dalvin went from 8 to 2, Cam Akers 23 to 10, Zeke 22 to 15, Antonio Gibson 25 to 15, Joe Mixon 32 to 25. Now, this is setting up a nice little trend combined with what we saw in 2019 for us to be able to identify some potential buy low running backs at the end of this video. And then the guys that fell down were James Robinson, David Montgomery, J.K. Dobbins, Josh Jacobs, Miles Sanders. But what's very interesting is the risers and the followers were about equal here in this season. This will be something that we talk about later on. Going over to 2022, not the case at all. 2022, you had 3 guys that moved up. You had Eckler, Travis Etienne, and Aaron Jones. Etienne's another very interesting guy we'll talk about. And then the guys that fell down, Alvin Kamara, Nick Chubb, J.K. Dobbins, Antonio Gibson, Elijah Mitchell, Derrick Henry, David Montgomery. And 2023, so this is last offseason, really the only guy that moved up throughout the offseason in any considerable mention is Ramondre Stevenson, going from 39 to 34. The guys who fell, Kenneth Walker went from 10 to 35. Obviously, Charbonnet drafted. Barkley went from 13 to 19. Travis Etienne, 16 to 30. Yeah, I mean, even if Tank Bigsby shouldn't have affected him, it did. Najee Harris, 22 to 38. DeAndre Swift, 27 to 68. Joe Mixon, 37 to 60. Derrick Henry, 41 to 46. Javonte, 43 to 52. Dalvin, 50 to 97. AJ Dillon, 66 to 91. So if we go through and we look at 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023. So this is the last 4 years of Dynasty market value, which I don't really think we should be looking at anything before then, because before then, I mean, really, it was much easier to just sell your running backs in the offseason. People weren't as sharp to it as they are now. You had 13 running backs rise in value if you would have bought them at the beginning of the offseason to where you could have bought them in the summer. Whereas you had 30 running backs that actually fell in value if you tried calling your shot and you tried buying them at the beginning of the offseason in comparison to where they were in the summer. And a couple different things that I want to discuss here before we look at the trends of the potential buy low candidates is, one, I think a big reason for this is as we sit here in January, as we sit here in February, a lot of people are thinking, oh, okay, well, they have to be a starting running back. Tajee Spears has to be a starting running back this next year. Derrick Henry is going to be gone. Look, there are only this many running backs, this many jobs, and you're going through and you are trying to line up every running back with every job. But the issue is, as the offseason goes on and we introduce a new rookie class, what actually happens is supply of running backs goes significantly up, whereas the amount of jobs remain the same. So all of a sudden, it's a musical chairs where there are going to be a few guys that are left out not having jobs, where if we're trying to pencil in Tajee Spears to be a feature down back right now, while it looks like that way on paper in February, it may not be that case once we actually get to the summer. The added benefit of waiting until the summer to actually buy your running back is going to be, you know what you are buying. You have all the information at your disposal. We had the combine, we had free agency, we had the NFL draft, and we were able to make a more informed decision overall. Now, if you are going to be buying a running back right now, I think that there is a clear trend of the running back targets that you should be going for. And this will be the year 2 guys. We go back in 2020. Who are the running backs that are rising up in ADP? Oh, that's Josh Jacobs. That's Miles Sanders. That's the guys that came off a year where they showed something as a rookie and people can kind of talk themselves into them. People can get a little bit excited and push up their value the following offseason. We see that in 2021. The guys rising up are Cam Akers, Antonio Gibson. The guys that maybe showed a little bit in year 1, but really it just took an offseason of us looking at nothing just to build up hype for no apparent reason to continue to move them up and up and up. We see that in 2022. Travis Etienne moves up those rankings as well. So I'd say if you are buying a running back, there are a few different indicators that it may not be the worst idea. One being that you want a weak running back draft class coming in, which is the case. And two, that you are buying a player coming off their rookie season that maybe people can talk themselves into and build up hype as the offseason goes on. So if we pull up flogfantasy.com real quick to get a sense of these running back values, these running back rankings, I think the primary guys that we need to be looking at will be year two players. Now, starting off with the guys at the very top, this is one other very important note that I need to point out. These players such as Jahmyr Gibbs, Breece Hall, Bijan Robinson, Christian McCaffrey, these top 5 running backs in Dynasty are very safe assets if you want to be buying them. If you wanted to go out there and pay the price for Jahmyr Gibbs, you go do you. I mean, we know what Gibbs is. We know the role that he's going to have this next season. He is a very safe asset to invest into. It's not like you're buying a running back 3 that you think may be a starter. No, we know Jahmyr Gibbs is a starter, and we see that in the historical data that if you wanted to go out there and if you wanted to buy a running back at the top of ADP, you're very safe that they're not going to plummet in value as maybe a Marlon Mack, a Kerryon Johnson. Those guys valued as high-end RB2s could potentially fall. So that's the first thing. If you wanted to buy one of these premium backs, if you wanted to sell the 103 and go get Jahmyr Gibbs, if you wanted to sell the 104, go get Breece Hall, go get Bijan, go get CMC. You are more than welcome to do that. Now, of course, if you pull up my rankings on flogfantasy.com, I may not necessarily have Christian McCaffrey this high. I may be a little bit more willing to just go out and buy Gibbs, Hall, Bijan. I would say that those are the cornerstone assets at running back right now. But of course, if you want to check out my rankings for Dynasty, if you wanted to check out the rankings of all your favorite creators, find all that on flogfantasy.com. There, we also have our trade calculator. There, we also have community rankings that you can check out every single day, all your premium content from your favorite creators. If you sign up with code FLOCK, you're going to get 30% off any subscription. Plus, with code FLOCK, yours truly will break down your Dynasty Fantasy Football team in a podcast. But we know that the running backs at the very top are extremely safe. And we have seen in years past that if you are buying a running back, typically you want to be buying those running backs that are going into year 2 that flashed as rookies. So the first guy that really fits that mold would be De'Von Achane. De'Von Achane in the community rankings right now is RB8. He is currently valued right between the 107 and the 108. Now, of course, this is Superflex, one quarterback. It's going to be much higher. But in a Superflex league, I would still probably rather have the 107 over Achane. That's going to be Bowers. That's going to be Rome. I probably rather have the pick. The 108, on the other hand, I think that's a very fair price point that if you are a big-time believer in De'Von Achane, I mean, you can go ahead. You can pull the trigger there if you would really like. Keep in mind, the 108 at the time being looks like it's going to be a tier drop. Looks like it may be Brian Thomas Jr. We don't necessarily know right at this point. And Achane did show some elite level efficiency. I'm not a big Achane guy, but he should be safe. And then going over to the next year 2 running back, the guy that we were picking on earlier that everybody's excited for. You do have Tyjae Spears currently as the running back 14 in the flogfantasy.com community rankings. He is currently right behind the 109, the 110, a late first, and directly before the 111 and the 112. So if you were buying Tyjae Spears in a Superflex league, you probably are looking to pay that late first round pick. My thing is, say hypothetically, you go through and you trade the 110 for Tyjae Spears. Everything goes right. Derrick Henry is off in Baltimore. The Tennessee Titans look at free agency and they go, no, you know what? We don't need anybody. They look at the NFL draft. They go, you know what? We don't need anybody at all. We're not even taking anybody on day 3. Best case scenario, they don't add a single running back and Tyjae Spears is the only guy on the roster next year. That happens. Where is he valued come this summer? Is Tyjae Spears moving from being a late first round pick in value to now he's worth a mid first round pick? And that's just something you have to ask yourself. If you're calling your shot now with this running back and everything goes right, how much value is he going to accrue? Versus, would you be better off waiting and seeing what happens in free agency and seeing what happens in the draft? And then maybe if you're still really believing the player come June, would you still be able to buy him for a late first round pick? I don't have the answer to that question. I do think that it's a very important question for you to ask yourself, however. Going over to another running back that showed something in year 1, if I had to plant my flag, this is the guy that I am buying. I'm going to take a shot with someone that does not cost a first round pick, with someone that I liked the profile of more coming into the NFL, with someone that has a new coaching staff in town. I'm going Zach Charbonnet here. If you look at this Zach Charbonnet price tag, he is ranked back-to-back with a 2024 mid-second round selection. I have found myself drafting Charbonnet nonstop in underdog drafts right now. I found myself being higher on him than consensus in Dynasty. Because if I'm looking at this profile, it's a running back that at UCLA profiled to be a 3-down back. In year one, he was primarily just used as a receiving down back. He was used pretty much as the 3rd down option, where Kenneth Walker was more so the 1st and 2nd down guy. What's interesting, though, is you have the coaching staff change where we don't necessarily know how this new staff is going to be viewing the 2 running backs. I'm not saying it's likely. You can pull up my rankings on flockfantasy.com. You'll see I still have Kenneth Walker ranked ahead of Zach Charbonnet. But I think that there's a non-0% chance that Zach Charbonnet is the running back 1 in Seattle this next season. I think it's in the range of outcomes. He has the profile where, worst case scenario, he's a premium handcuff back where if Kenneth Walker were to go down, all of a sudden he looks like an RB1. He's going to have a receiving down role probably regardless. So I love the idea of buying Zach Charbonnet as a mid-second round pick right now. I really don't want to be paying any higher of a price tag than that. I'm probably not going to be buying someone like Tajee Spears with a 1st round pick this year. I'd rather just see how the offseason plays out. But I could see a world where come late summer, Zach Charbonnet is worth a late 1st rather than a mid-second. And I would be willing to take the stab there. But outside of that, based off this data, it still probably shows you that you shouldn't be buying running backs right now unless you're going to get a crazy deal. But I think that's all I have for you. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please go down there, hit that like button, subscribe, play Dynasty Fantasy Football. And of course, you want to check out my Dynasty Fantasy Football rankings, all my premium content, all the premium content of all your favorite creators. Find that on flockfantasy.com. Code FLOCK will get you 30% off any subscription plus a podcast from yours truly, breaking down your Dynasty Fantasy Football team. But I think that's all I have for you. Really appreciate you and really hope we get to see you out with a video tomorrow.